A couple weeks ago, you tweeted something out that, yeah, I'm going to bring it up, that got a crazy amount of attention, which, did it?
Sports Illustrated, swimsuit edition, I believe you're referring to.
Yes.
I tweeted out, sorry, not beautiful. Yeah, people weren't very happy with that.
And then everyone got upset.
Yes, they did. And then I left Twitter again, more or less, right after that, and everyone assumed that that was why, and it wasn't.
No.
It was, I suppose in some sense it was, because what happened was an indication of the problem with Twitter. But I had been not reading Twitter comments for about 3 weeks, although I had been tweeting through an intermediary, one of my staff members. So I'd email him a tweet, but not reading comments because I found that quite...
irksome?
Yeah,
like you're associating with the
devil?
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it was like sort of like standing in a public park where anybody, no matter who they were, could come up and yell at you to any size audience about anything they wanted, day or night. And so I've been thinking that through. I'm going to write an article about what's wrong with Twitter and social media in general. But no, I looked at the Sports Illustrated cover, and they had a rather overweight young woman, quite symmetrical, so nice facial features and so forth, with a very revealing swimsuit on the cover. And I thought, no, like not in a personal way, but it's unbelievably manipulative for about 3 different reasons. The first is it's a very tawdry attempt to capitalize on cheap sales. And I mean cheap in a specific way. Sports Illustrated hit the gold mine with their swimsuit cover, I suppose 20 years ago, whenever they established that. Because it was obviously it's a sports magazine, so it's about athletics. It's about athletic people. It's about athletic bodies. And they had a swimsuit issue, and it really was a big hit. And then it became kind of a cultural icon. And it's a very specific kind of cultural icon because it focuses on a very exceptional kind of high-end beauty. And so that beauty would involve symmetry and signals of youth, because that's part of beauty, sexual beauty, physical beauty, waist-to-hip ratio for women. But with Sports Illustrated, it's also highlighting a kind of athleticism in body type. And that's a very specific form of beauty. You have to be young. You have to be female, generally. You have to be extremely athletic. You have to be shapely in a very particular way. And that would be with a waist-to-hip ratio of 0.68, because that's what's been established cross-culturally as ideal from the perspective of male sexual interest, let's say, but that's also associated with fertility.
Yeah.
And so it's a marker that has a biological basis. And so even if you're a very beautiful woman, you're hard pressed to be beautiful enough to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the swimsuit issue. And so it's a pinnacle achievement of sorts. And it's focused on a very idealized and specific form of beauty. And that's obviously exclusionary. It's obviously exclusionary. It excludes everyone. Right. And it does that to highlight a kind of ideal, and that's a particular ideal of beauty. And there are some cultural boundaries around that. So you could say, well, it's a westernized form of beauty. It's like, yeah. And you can point to Rubens' paintings of more plump women and say, well, there's an exception. It's like, great. You think you're a genius for finding that exception. Good for you. You know the Rubens painting. Like, more power to you. But that doesn't mean anything at all about the universality of images of beauty. And so the cover bothered me a lot because it was a cheap manipulation of something that had been working very well for Sports Illustrated. It was also an insistence that all of a sudden this non-athletic body type is as beautiful as the standard swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated. And it's not. It's not as athletic, and it's not as healthy, and that's that. And it's also not arbitrary. And so the whole thing is a lie. And then it's a lie that's a manipulation of that young woman. Now, she partakes in that because she participates in it. But it's still, they're not on her side. They're exploiting her, as far as I'm concerned. And she may be participating in that exploitation, but they're still exploiting her. So don't pull any moral stunts on me because you're irritated about my opinion about the Sports Illustrated cover when it's bloody clear to anybody with eyes that that was manipulative in 20 different ways. And I'm also not willing to sacrifice these ideals for inclusiveness. It's like, no, not everyone's a genius. No, not everyone's Picasso. No, not everyone's young and healthy. And no, not everyone is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, period. And fuck you if you don't like it. So that's basically what I thought about that. I certainly didn't think it would cause as much trouble as it did. You know, when people were on my case for being mean, it's like, yeah, I know, I'm always mean because, you know, that's...
Well, also, like, life is hard and, like, life is mean, right? And it's hard for people... First of all, I have great sympathy for anybody overweight because of the health struggles I went through. And you lost a whole bunch of weight. It's not like being overweight's fun, right?
No.
That's a whole other problem to get into with, I think people have such an issue losing weight.
Yeah.
That society has said, you know what, it's fine. Because you've had so much trouble that it's probably your genetics. Yeah. So you might...
there's truth in that. Like when I look at someone who's obese on the street, I think, oh, that's too bad. Like, that's too bad. I don't think, you know, obese pig eats too much, has no self-control. I don't think that. I think bad mismatch between genetic proclivity and appalling diet. And the appalling diet is basically, we're not going to get into this, but basically carbohydrate heavy and sugar loaded. And fair enough, you know, we tried hard, the whole world, to make calories cheap. Mm-hmm. And we did that. So no one's starving and great. But now we have an obesity problem and it's a major problem. And I'm not going to pretend that it's okay. It's not okay. That doesn't mean I don't have sympathy for it. And I'm not willing to sacrifice any ideals for this idiot inclusiveness. I'm done with that. And so should everyone else be. And I think most people are. And they look at that cover and they know it's manipulative and a lie in a deep